Captain Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the endless void of space through the reinforced viewport. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency as it patrolled the outer rim of human territory. For 3 months, they had seen nothing but empty space and distant stars. That was about to change. "Captain, we're receiving something," Communications Officer Lisa Park called out, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's strange. The signal is weak, but it's definitely artificial." Steele moved to her station, his weathered face creased with concern. After 20 years in the colonial fleet, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about this felt different. The signal came in broken fragments, like a voice crying out across impossible distances. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. Park worked frantically, her brow furrowed in concentration. Slowly, the static cleared, and a voice emerged from the chaos. It spoke in no human language, yet somehow the universal translator began to make sense of the words. "Help. Dying. They come from the dark. Please. Anyone." The bridge fell silent. First contact protocols had been drilled into every officer, but this wasn't the meeting they had prepared for. This was desperation given voice. Navigator James Cross checked his instruments twice before speaking. "Captain, the signal's coming. From the Kepler sector. That's 3 days at maximum burn." Steele knew the regulations. They should report to command and wait for orders. But the voice in that signal haunted him. He had heard similar cries during the Mars colony disaster, when thousands had died waiting for rescue that came too late. "Lisa, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're investigating a potential first contact scenario." He turned to his crew. "James, plot a course for the Kepler sector. Engineering, I want everything this ship has." Chief Engineer, Rebecca Torres nodded grimly. "You'll have it, Captain. The Defiance won't let you down." As the massive warship changed course, its fusion drives painting space with brilliant fire, none of them knew they were about to witness something that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The distress signal continued to broadcast, growing stronger with each passing hour. In the depths of space, other ships received the same call. The UES Vengeance, under Captain David Knox, broke off from a routine patrol. The heavy cruiser UES Thunder, commanded by Captain Patricia Voss, diverted from its convoy escort mission. One by one, humanity's warships began converging on coordinates that would soon become legend. The signal told a story of terror and hope, of a civilization facing extinction and crying out to the stars for salvation. What the human captains didn't yet know was that dozens of other species had received the same call. They had all chosen to ignore it, to protect themselves from whatever had driven an entire world to the brink of destruction. Only humanity answered the call. 3 days later, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an alien solar system. What they found defied everything they thought they knew about war and civilization. Captain Steele stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Debris fields stretched across millions of kilometers, the remains of what had once been a mighty fleet. Twisted metal and shattered hulls drifted like mechanical ghosts, telling the story of a battle that had raged for weeks. "My God," whispered Tactical Officer Ryan Blake. "There must be thousands of ships out there. What could have done this?" The answer came from scanner operator Nina Foster. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving through the system. They're unlike anything in our databases." On the main screen, dark shapes materialized from the void. They moved with predatory grace, their hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. These were the Hunters, the force that had reduced a star-spanning civilization to scattered refugees. "Signal from the Vengeance," Communications Officer Park reported. "Captain Knox requests permission to form up with us." "Granted. Have all ships maintain formation, but stay ready for combat." The alien distress signal grew stronger as they approached the system's 4th planet. Through the interference, they could make out desperate transmissions in a dozen different languages. Survivors were hiding in asteroid fields, on the dark sides of moons, anywhere the hunters might not find them. Engineer Torres ran a deep scan of the enemy vessels. "Captain, Their technology is incredible. Those ships are using some kind of dark matter manipulation for both propulsion and weapons. They're more advanced than us in every measurable way. Steele nodded grimly. But they haven't met humans before. The first contact came when one of the dark ships broke off from its hunting pack and approached the human fleet. It was massive, easily twice the size of the Defiance, its surface covered in what looked like organic growths. Incoming transmission, Park announced. It's in perfect English. The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, yet somehow alive. Unknown vessels, you do not belong in this system. The Devourers claim this space. Withdraw or be consumed. Captain Steele stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. This is Captain Marcus Steele of the United Earth ship Defiance. We're here responding to a distress call. We won't withdraw while innocents are dying. Laughter filled the bridge, a sound like breaking glass. Foolish mammals. Your species is young and weak. We have consumed 1,000 civilizations. You will be no different. We'll see about that, Steele replied, cutting the transmission. He turned to his crew. All hands, battle stations, signal the fleet. We're going in. The human warships spread into attack formation, their weapons powering up with deadly purpose. They were outnumbered 50-1, facing an enemy that had never known defeat. But they were human, and humans had never learned when to quit. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up the void like a newborn star. The Devourer's dark matter beams tore through space, but the human ships danced between them with impossible grace. Captain Voss of the Thunder proved that human intuition could outmatch alien calculations. Evasive pattern Delta, she ordered, her ship rolling between enemy fire. Target their weapon clusters. If we can't match their power, we'll match their precision. The Thunder's railgun batteries spoke with voices of thunder, hurling tungsten slugs at near-light speed. The projectiles found their marks, carving deep wounds in the alien hulls. For the first time in millennia, the Devourers felt pain. On the Defiance, Captain Steele coordinated the fleet's attack. Knox, take your squadron and hit their flanks. Foster, any word from the survivors? Multiple signals, Captain. They're saying something about weak points in the Devourer ships. Apparently, they tried to fight back before we arrived. The information proved invaluable. The alien survivors had discovered that the Devourer's organic components were vulnerable to specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. Human ships began modifying their weapons on the fly, their crews working with desperate efficiency. Engineer Torres pushed the Defiance's systems beyond their design limits. Fusion reactors. At 110% capacity, Captain. We can maintain this for maybe 30 minutes before we risk core breach. That's 29 minutes longer than we'll need, Steele replied, watching as another Devourer ship exploded under concentrated human fire. The battle raged across the system, human ships weaving between the dark behemoths like wolves attacking giants. The Devourers had expected terror and surrender. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought with calculated fury and refused to break. Captain Knox's voice crackled over the comm. Steele, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors show more Devourer ships incoming. Looks like reinforcements. The tactical display updated, showing dozens of new contacts dropping out of whatever dimension the Devourers used for faster-than-light travel. The human fleet was about to be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. All ships, maintain formation, Steele ordered. We knew this might happen. What the Devourers didn't know was that humanity had a secret weapon, the ability to learn and adapt faster than any species they had encountered. During the battle, human computers had been analyzing every aspect of Devourer technology, looking for weaknesses and patterns. Scanner operator Foster suddenly straightened. Captain, I think I found something. Their ships are all connected by some kind of quantum link. If we could disrupt it. Do it, Steele commanded. The human fleet converged. On a single point, all weapons focused on one massive Devourer vessel that seemed to be coordinating the others. The combined firepower of humanity's finest warships concentrated into a spear of pure destruction. The target ship's shields failed, its hull cracked, and something wonderful happened. The quantum link shattered, leaving the other Devourer ships, blind and confused, their perfect coordination broken. For the first time in eons, the Devourers experienced doubt. With their command structure disrupted, the Devourer fleet began to falter. Ships that had moved in perfect harmony now collided with each other, their formation breaking apart like a house of cards. The human captains pressed their advantage, with ruthless efficiency. "All ships concentrate fire on the disoriented vessels," Captain Steele ordered. "Don't give them time to re-establish their link." The battle became a rout. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their enemies, struck like lightning and vanished before the Devourers could respond. The Thunder's captain, Patricia Voss, led a squadron of destroyers in a devastating attack run that crippled 3 enemy vessels. "This is for every world you've burned," she muttered, watching the alien ships drift helplessly through space. Meanwhile, rescue operations began. Throughout the system, human shuttles darted between asteroid fields and hidden bases, evacuating survivors who had thought death was certain. The rescued aliens stared in wonder at their human saviors, unable to believe that anyone had answered their desperate call. On the Defiance's hangar bay, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Helen Rivers worked tirelessly to treat the rescued survivors. Many belonged to species humanity had never seen before, but the doctor's oath transcended biological barriers. "They're suffering from malnutrition and psychological trauma," she reported to Captain Steele. "But they'll live, thanks to what you and your crew did out there." The Devourer fleet, once numbering in the hundreds, had been reduced to a handful of crippled ships. Their commander, a being of pure malevolence that had consumed entire star systems, found itself facing something it had never encountered: defeat. "Impossible," it transmitted to the human fleet. "We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We have devoured civilizations older than your sun." Captain Steele's response was calm and measured. "Maybe that's your problem. You've been hunting prey for so long, you forgot what happens when you meet a predator." The remaining Devourer ships began to retreat, their dark forms disappearing into whatever dimension they had emerged from. But the human fleet wasn't finished. They had learned something crucial during the battle. The Devourers weren't invincible, and their reign of terror could be ended. "Signal to all ships," Steele commanded. "Begin search and rescue operations. Every survivor in this system gets a ride home." As the human warships spread across the battlefield, their crews working to save every life they could find, word of the victory began to spread. For the first time in galactic history, someone had not only survived an encounter with the Devourers, but had driven them away. The rescued aliens spoke of the humans' courage in hushed tones, their stories spreading through refugee camps and hidden colonies. They told of ships that came not to conquer or exploit but to help, of beings who risked everything to answer a stranger's call for help. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had arrived, and everything was about to change. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Sector, the galaxy was a different place. The story of humanity's victory had spread through every known civilization, carried by the thousands of refugees the human fleet had rescued. For the first time in living memory, species that had hidden in fear began to emerge from their shelters. Captain Marcus Steele found himself at the center of a diplomatic revolution. The Defiance now served as flagship for the growing alliance of species determined to rid the galaxy of the Devourer threat. His bridge had become a meeting place for beings from dozens of worlds, all united by a common cause. "Captain, communications," Officer Park announced. "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting an audience with you." The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for millennia, but their rule had been one of hiding and appeasement. When the Devourers came, the Council's response had always been the same: retreat and hope the monsters would be satisfied with their current victims. Now they wanted to meet the species that had done the impossible. The meeting took place on the neutral station of Concordia, a massive space habitat that had served as the galaxy's diplomatic center for centuries. Captain Steele arrived aboard the Defiance, accompanied by a fleet of human and allied ships that had never been seen in Council space before. The Council chamber was a marvel of engineering, a vast sphere where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to debate the affairs of the galaxy. As Captain Steele entered, the chamber fell silent. These beings had ruled the stars for millennia, but they had never encountered anything like humanity. "You are the one called Steele," spoke the council's eldest member, a being so ancient that its species name was lost to history. "Your actions have caused ripples throughout our established order." "If by ripples you mean hope, then yes," Steele replied calmly. "For too long this galaxy has lived in fear. That ends now." The debate that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Some council members argued for caution, insisting that provoking the Devourers would only bring greater destruction. Others, inspired by the human example, called for a coordinated campaign to drive the dark ships from every system they had claimed. In the end, it was the survivors who decided the matter. Representatives from dozens of worlds that had been ravaged by the Devourers stood before the council and spoke with one voice. No more running, no more hiding, no more sacrificing the innocent to buy temporary peace. The Galactic Defense Alliance was born that day, with humanity as its guiding spirit and the human fleet as its core. Captain Steele was named Supreme Commander, a title that came with the responsibility of coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. As the Defiance departed Concordia Station, its mission was clear: find every Devourer stronghold and eliminate the threat they posed to all life in the galaxy. The ship that had answered a single distress call now led a crusade that would liberate countless worlds. The communication logs of that historic day record Captain Steele's final transmission to the Council. "When we first heard that distress signal, we had a choice. We could have ignored it like so many others did. Instead, we chose to answer. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us strong." The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about humanity. They were the species that answered the call, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. In the years that followed, that truth would echo through the stars, carried by the ships of the Galactic Defense Alliance and the crews who wore the human insignia with pride. The Devourer's reign of terror was ending, and it was ending because one species had decided that impossible was just another word for not yet accomplished. The legend of humanity's first galactic war had begun, and the stars themselves would remember.